Next, sew the different parts of the two kittens. Take out the nose and about 15 inches of black yarn. Pull out 2 strands from the black yarn. As for strands in total, we pull them out one by one. This helps prevent the yarn from tangling. Combine the 2 pulled strands together. Thread the sewing needle. Embroider an inverted triangle nose in the center of the nose. The yarn is used with one long end and one short end. Insert the needle from the back side of the nose. Do not pull the yarn tail all the way out. First, embroider the outline of the inverted triangle. Then fill in the middle of the triangle. Next, embroider 2 horizontal stitches. Then embroider 1 vertical stitch downwards. Tie the 2 yarn tails into a knot. Cut off the excess yarn tails. The nose tip is completed. Next, determine the sewing position for the nose. The nose is sewn onto the main body between rounds 9 and 10, held from the top. Here is the first round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round, sixth round, seventh round, eighth round, ninth round, 10th round. The nose should be sewn between the 2 eyes. We insert the sewing needle here to mark the spot. Take out the stitch marker. Use stitch markers to mark the positions on both sides of the nose. It's roughly this position. Thread the longer yarn tail of the nose onto the sewing needle. Insert the sewing needle between rounds 9 and 10. Pull it out slightly to the side. Let's first check to see if the position looks right. The position is good. Let's start sewing. When sewing, only go through half of the side stitches. Remove the stitch marker. Continue sewing along the edge of the nose. Pull this yarn tail tight. Remove the stitch marker on this side and continue sewing. After finishing sewing, pull the yarn tail out from any spot. Thread this yarn tail onto the sewing needle. Pull the yarn tail out from the same spot. Tie a knot with the yarn tails. Cut off the excess yarn tails. Tuck the yarn knot inside the fabric. You can also use the sewing needle to tuck in the yarn knot. And neaten up the nose. This way, the nose part is completed. Next, sew the ears. First, confirm the positions for sewing the ears. The ears are sewn onto the main body between rounds 4 and 6, counting from the top. First round, second round, third round, fourth round, fifth round, sixth round. Sew the ears onto both sides of the head. On rounds for 2-6. For stitches away from the eye, place a stitch marker here. The other side is done the same way. From rounds for 2-6. For stitches away from the eye, place a stitch marker. Check if the ears are symmetrical on both sides. The positions look good. Start sewing. Take one ear and thread the longer yarn tail onto the sewing needle. First, thread the white yarn tail. Position the ear like this for sewing. Insert the needle above round 4. Pull out below round 6. Pull tight. Sew one more stitch upwards. Pull the yarn tail out from any spot. Also thread the shorter yarn tail onto the sewing needle. Insert the needle below round 6. Pull the yarn tail out from any spot. Thread the yarn tail of the outer ear onto the sewing needle. Sew the outer ear part as well. One ear is now sewn on. You don't need to cut the yarn tail yet. After sewing the other ear, make sure both ears are symmetrical. Then cut off the yarn tails. Sew the other ear the same way. After sewing both ears, make sure the ears are symmetrical. Pull both yarn tails out from the same spot. Tie them together in pairs. Cut off the excess yarn tails. Tuck the yarn knot inside the fabric. Handle the other yarn tails the same way. Next, sew the arms. There are 2 ways of sewing the arms. We can sew the arms at the junction of the head and body, with the arms leaning forward like this. Take out the sewing needle and thread the yarn tail onto it. Go straight down from the ear. Insert the needle roughly at this position. Pull out from the side stitch. Sew the arm tilted forward like this. Sew the arm tilted forward with 1 more stitch like this. This completes sewing the arm in the first way. We can sew the arm in the other way. Sew the arms vertically like this onto both sides of the body. Thread the yarn tail onto the sewing needle. Sew vertically like this. One arm is sewn. You can choose whichever style you prefer to sew the arms. Pull both yarn tails out from the same spot. Then, tie a knot. Cut off the excess yarn tails. When sewing the arms, make sure they are symmetrical on the left and right. Next, sew the legs. The legs are sewn onto the 5th round from the bottom of the body. Here's the 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, and 5th round. Extend down from the arm. Attach a stitch marker. Attach a stitch marker on the other side, extending down from the arm. There is a gap of 7 to 8 stitches between the 2 legs. Let's adjust the position. Next, thread the yarn tail of the leg onto the sewing needle. Insert the needle at the position where the stitch marker is placed. Pull out below the 5th round. Then sew along the stitches of the last round of the leg. One leg is sewn. Sew the other leg the same way. After sewing, make sure both legs are symmetrical. Pull both yarn tails out from the same spot, then tie a knot to secure them. Cut off the extra yarn tails. Put the yarn knot inside the fabric. Next, sew the tail. The tail is sewn onto the back of the body. Count up from the bottom to the 4th row. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Sew the tail here. Place the stitch marker here. Thread the yarn tail onto the sewing needle. Remove the stitch marker. Insert the needle from where the stitch marker is attached. Pull it out through the next stitch beside it. Sew along the last round of the tail. If you want the tail to stand up like this, you can sew one more stitch to 2-3 rounds up. This way, the tail stands up. We can curl the tail a little. Now, the tail has a nice curved shape. Pass the yarn tail through the fabric several times. This helps prevent the yarn from slipping. Cut off the excess yarn tail. And just like that, the tail is sewn on. Take a piece of about 9 inches of orange or yellow yarn. Let's shape the eye socket. Thread the yarn onto the sewing needle. First, insert the needle into the head near the center. Pull the needle out beside the eye. Insert the needle again. Pull the needle out a little beside the eye. Don't pull the yarn tail completely inside the fabric, then insert the needle from the inside of the eye. Pull out just a little beside the other eye. It looks like this now. Hold both ends of the yarn and pull a little tighter. On the other side, pull out just a little beside the eye as well. Insert the needle from the inside of the eye. Pull the yarn through to the back of the head. Then pull the yarn tight. This yarn should be pulled out from the same spot. Then pull both yarn tails tight. You can see a slight indentation appear on the eye. Tie a knot with the yarn tails. Don't pull too tight. A slight indentation on the eye is enough. Cut off the excess yarn tails. Tuck the yarn knot inside the fabric. Use the sewing needle to make some adjustments. Adjust the position of the eye. Tidy it up. From the side, the eye socket is formed. Cut a piece of black yarn about 9 inches long. Pull out 2 strands from it. Pull them out 1 strand at a time. Combine the 2 pulled strands together. Thread the sewing needle. Embroider the upper eyeliner above the eye. Insert the sewing needle at the top of the head. Bring the yarn out a little inside, next to the eye. Don't pull the yarn tail completely inside the fabric. Wrap around the upper part of the eye like this. Cover the upper half of the eye. Insert the needle at a stitch next to the eye. Pull out from any position. Tidy it up. Pull both yarn tails out from the same spot. This completes the upper eyeliner embroidery. Then tie a knot. Cut off the excess yarn tails. Tuck the yarn knot inside the fabric. Embroider the upper eyeliner on the other side using the same method. The upper eyeliners are completed. Next, take 9 inches of white yarn. Embroider the lower eyeliners below the eyes. Thread the yarn onto the sewing needle. One end of the yarn is long and the other is short. Insert the needle a little beside the eye. Pull the needle out from the inner side below the eye. Then insert the needle beside the eye. Pull out from any position. This completes the lower eyeliner of one eye. Pass the yarn tail through the fabric several more times. Then cut off the extra yarn tail. Embroider the lower eyeliner of the other eye using the same method. The lower eyeliners are completed. Next, take 9 inches of black yarn to embroider the eyebrows. Pull out 1 strand from it. Thread the sewing needle. One end of the yarn is long, and the other is short. The eyebrows are embroidered on the head, counting down from the top to the 6th round. Just above the eyes. There is a gap of 5 stitches between the 2 eyebrows. These are the positions of the eyebrows. Insert the sewing needle at any point and pull it out at the stitch marker. The eyebrows are slightly tilted. Do not pull the yarn tail completely into the fabric. The eyebrow on one side is now completed. On the other side, also pull out from the stitch marker position. Skip 2 stitches. And insert the needle slightly from the side. Pull out from any position. This side is a bit long. Let's adjust it. Now both eyebrows are completed. Pull both yarn tails out from the same spot. Tie a knot to secure it. Cut off the excess yarn tails. Tuck the yarn, not inside the fabric. Let's pull out another strand from the 9-inch yarn we just used. Let's embroider the whiskers. Thread the yarn onto the sewing needle. Embroider the whiskers on the rounds below the eyes. Insert the needle from any side position. Pull out from the round below the eye. Then diagonally skip 3 stitches upward. Then pull out from the next row, 1 stitch back. Cross forward over 4 stitches horizontally. Then insert the needle into the next round. Diagonally cross over 3 stitches. Pull both yarn tails out from the same spot. The whiskers on one side are completed. Tie the 2 yarn tails together. Cut off the excess yarn tails. Tuck the yarn knot inside the fabric. Embroider the whiskers on the other side using the same method. Now the whiskers on both sides are embroidered. Then take out the chest fur. Sew it onto the front of the orange kitty's body. Thread the shorter yarn tail onto the sewing needle. Insert the needle just beside the arm. Pull it out just beside the other side of the arm. Sew 1 stitch on the other side of the fabric. Then sew along the connection between the head and the body. Thread this longer yarn tail onto the sewing needle. Sew along both sides of the chest fur. Pull the yarn tail out from the same spot. Tie a knot to secure it. Cut off the extra yarn tails. Tuck the yarn knot inside the fabric. This way the orange kitty is fully sewn. Take about 18 inches of orange yarn. We will embroider 3 stripes on the yellow kitty's head from round 1 to round 4. First, let's find the right position. Here is the first round. Second round, third round, fourth round. Use a stitch marker to mark it. Here, counting backward. First round, second round, third round. Place a stitch marker here at the third round. We will embroider the pattern in this area. Thread the yarn onto the sewing needle. One end of the yarn is long, and the other is short. Insert the sewing needle from any position. Pull out from the front where the stitch marker is placed. Leave a little yarn tail. Don't pull it completely into the fabric. Insert the needle from the back where the stitch marker is placed. Then, thread it back to the front. Then embroider once more. Pass the yarn to the side. Tidy up the pattern. Embroider with a slight tilt. Also embroider this side with a slight tilt. Pull both yarn tails out from the same spot. Tidy up the patterns. Tie the 2 yarn tails into a knot. Then cut off the extra yarn tails. Tuck the yarn knot inside the fabric. This completes the patterns on the yellow kitty's head. The yellow kitty is completed.